call this meeting of the Grafton Planning Board to order for July 11th, 2022. Pursuant to Chapters 20 of the Acts of 2021, this meeting of the Grafton Planning Board is being conducted with both in-person and remote participation by board members and the members of the public. Remote participation by the public for the public comment agenda item, the public hearings, and any other item matter for which the board allows public participation will be via the Zoom raise hand feature. If you raise your hand on Zoom, you will be enabled at an appropriate point to enter the meeting via voice or video to make comment or ask a question. In all cases, whether in person or remote, please identify yourself by name and address for the record. Every vote tonight will be taken by roll call. Please note that this meeting is being recorded as well as being broadcast live on the Grafton Community Television channel. And I'll start with the roll call. Mr. Robbins?
Present.
Mr. Hassinger?
I'm here.
Ms. Hassinger?
Here.
Mr. Venkatraman?
I'm here.
Ms. McCormack?
Here.
And I am here. And we have staff, Chris.
Present.
And I don't know if Natalia is on the call.
Present.
Wonderful.
I don't know why I'm.
That's all right. So our first agenda item, as always, is public input. Is there anyone that would like to speak to an item not already on the agenda? Seeing none. Our next item is an action item for determination of minor modification for 109 Creeper Hill Road for Feedback Earth.
David Janacek here for Feedback Earth. Hello, everybody. Good evening.
Hello.
Chris, Justin.
Yes.
Look, like I said, I'm not sure whether, I see we have a fair number of people in attendance. So what I said, just point out that there are closed captions available now. First time I've noticed it. Just let people know.
Yeah. So
Okay.
so we are using the closed caption feature tonight. If they're not automatically enabled, you can go to the bottom of your screen next to where the share screen and the raise hand features are, and there should be an option for live transcript. And if you click that, you can get a live transcript as well. It is the auto transcript, so it's not flawless, but we're testing that feature out tonight.
I don't think there's any closed captioning that's flawless.
All right. So would you like to recap what we're here about, David?
Absolutely. Good evening, everybody. Last time we met, which was at the last planning board meeting, I put forward kind of our idea for broadening the access road from Creeper Hill Road into our facility. As the note kind of describes, the scope of that work is to add a retaining wall where an old office building used to be. The foundation, or rather the building was demolished, but the foundation was kept. We want to backfill it with gravel stone and broaden the access way by about 20 feet. And at that last meeting, I asked for your guidance on how to best go forward for this, whether this needs a whole planning board approach. And you guys indicated, and I'm hoping it's still the case, that we can go the minor modification approach. And that is why we're here today, to determine, I seek your determination on minor mod.
I do recall at our last discussion, the primary thing we were looking for to be able to make the determination was a plan showing what you were doing with this retaining wall, and we did receive that as part of our packet. So,
Correct.
Any further comment from the board? Chris, do you have anything to add?
No. On this, I'll move that the board find that the modification proposed on the submitted plan is a minor modification, and that the board approve the modification as proposed.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? I'll take the vote. Mr. Robbins.
Aye.
Mr. Hassinger.
Aye.
Ms. Hassinger.
Aye.
Mr. Venkatraman.
Aye.
And I vote aye. Declare the motion carried unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Janacek.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we will see you later on for the second, the other part of this, which is the silos or whatever.
Yes.
we're
Correct.
calling it.
Once we have that scope very well defined, which still some work to do there, and absolutely we will go through the formal route with the notice to all the abutters and everything like that, with an updated site plan and etc.
Sounds wonderful.
Sounds good.
Thank you. Right. Our next agenda item, which has been on our list for a little while, is bond approval for Village Institute Road, Pulte Homes, and Afonso Builders Incorporated. This is continued from June 27th. Do we have anything from the staff level on this at this point?
So the bond, and I apologize, I have not been able to review fully the meeting from the planning board's last meeting, but the point that I recall it being at, I did provide documents, a kind of standard Massachusetts template for bond for bond approvals, and the applicant did, from my understanding, agree with that bond form and submitted that with the required edits. I don't believe we've had any formal town council review, but I have discussed with other towns, and that's not necessarily a standard procedure. Especially when working with this a template that has been fairly standard since 2002. So if the board is comfortable with moving forward, I do have confidence in that bond form.
All right.
Is this the normal form that we have on most subdivisions?
Yeah, so I couldn't find that we had a standard form, at least on file for us. The bond form that I did, that came up when I was looking for that, is from the Massachusetts Federation of Planning and Appeals Boards. It's a 2002 document that I'm sure was well vetted by legal experts in terms of.
When I say form, the law allows 3 or 4 forms of surety.
Yep.
That's what I'm actually asking about. Is this the usual one?
Yes, yeah. So there's the 4 forms, and it's actually technically it's the developer's option which 4 that they want to proceed with, and this is one of those 4, and the document is standard. So
Yeah, to the best of my recollection, over at least the past the years I've been on the board, to the best of my recollection, the performance bond has been the most commonly used form with past subdivisions from us.
And this is that.
correct.
Okay. And the amount. I don't remember when we saw an amount.
Yeah, the amount was provided by Graves, and that amount that was proposed is what Graves reviewed and provided as their bond estimate.
Remember the number, or just roughly the number?
Let me pull up
It's in. Let's see. There's 2 bonds involved here, as we may recall from previous discussions, that we've separated it into the on-site construction and the off-site construction, with the intent of the off-site construction is basically the rebuild of Institute Road, and the expectation is that will be completed significantly before the rest of the subdivision. So that bond has been sort of set up to be independent of the subdivision bond.
Right. But I am what we're doing is covering both of those here, right?
Yeah, we've
Both
got,
those bonds. Because I've been concerned, you'll recall, with getting the road work done expeditiously, and so this is a little different thing, and I just
Yeah,
want
so-
to watch closely. But I guess it's okay to move to.
yeah, the Graves estimate for the on-site looks like 5.2 million and change, and for the off-site it looks like 233,000.
Well, I'll move to approve both.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion from the board? I'll take a roll. Mr. Robbins,
Aye.
Mr. Hassinger,
Aye.
Ms. Hassinger,
Aye.
Mr. Venkatraman,
Aye.
and I vote aye. I declare the motion carried unanimously. We'll get these documents out to staff how we need to for this.
Yeah, so, and just seeing that the applicant's on the call, what I just request is if they could have a signed copy provided, and then I'll have the board members come in and sign once that's received.
Yep, that's no problem, Chris. I'll reach out tomorrow and touch base. We had some just, as you sent over, kind of the fill in the blank form, we just had some, edits to it as expected, and I just want to make sure that you're comfortable with all that. So I'll just follow up with that tomorrow, and we can get you the signed version.
Understood, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now, our next item is a discussion item, since it's not even close to 7:30 yet, for Farmerville Acres, 61 Maple Street, Norman Hill. Come on up.
Good evening. My client's suffering from gout here.
Good evening, Stephen David, the applicant, and my favorite engineer, Norm Hill. If you folks, I'm gonna talk a little bit first now. If you recall, we were here before, several weeks back, and introduced a 10-lot subdivision, and there was some commentary from the board as to possible revisions to that, so it would be more palatable for the board. The first one was sort of the conventional plans and what a conventional plan would look like within the confines of the 500-foot road limitation. And the second was an affordability component to the subdivision, which was brought up by Mr. Hassinger. So we took those two, and not going to say instructions, but we listened carefully, and I directed Norm to do the conventional plans to show the board what that would look like. And I'll defer to Norm now and then come back and discuss the project a little bit further.
Good evening, Norman Hill, Grafton, Mass. I'm a licensed civil engineer and land surveyor.
I'm gonna pause you just for 1 second, Chris. Can you just put this on presentation as well, since we have the digital copy for you on the call?
Absolutely.
So we've two new sketches for you tonight. Both of them have a road length of 500 feet. This is the conventional sketch. Neither road is over 500 feet. Shows 9 new lots. There would be 2 common driveways. One common driveway would feed lots 1, 2, and 3. The other common driveway would feed lots 4 and 7. The reason for those common driveways is to minimize any impact to the wetlands on the site. Then we did a 500-foot dead-end road concept sketch for flexible. These lots are much smaller. They're all clustered right up here. Again, the road is just 500 feet, and you would get 9 flex lots. There would be 1 common driveway to feed lots 1, 2, and 3. I'd like to point out that there's an existing driveway that comes down right where that common driveway is proposed on both plans. So you can drive down here now to this field. There was an active facility down here for years, and that driveway is still accessible. So we position that common driveway to be right where that is to minimize construction costs. So in either case, flex or conventional, we're proposing 9 new lots. Now the plan we had looked at last time was this plan, which had 11 lots and a 1,000-foot dead-end road. Now we were offering almost 6 acres of land for dedicated open space in consideration for a waiver to the 500-foot dead-end length. Now my client is willing to make one of these 10 lots an affordable housing lot. So those are the 3 options in front of us. We're hoping that we could get some feedback from the board and maybe some direction as to which way I should proceed in my design work.
Before that discussion, I mean, I want to point out that the layout that that I prefer, you know, the lots are more compliant and the project is more compliant than the other revisions. The only waiver we need is the length of road, which we know, and I believe we need a special permit for a driveway that cuts into those other three lots. The lots are in conformance with the square footage, and the road then continues on and accesses the larger lot, which is where the farm is. So the conventional plans have, you know, really funky layouts to them, but they are compliant as well. So we explored that. I told Norm to introduce the fact that we're willing to have one of the homes to be affordable, which seems to be trending that way in developing larger parcels. And we thought I'm back here tonight asking the board to take into consideration what we've done, and we'd like to come back with a definitive and you know, lay it out in detail and amend our initial filing. So we're going to listen some more and try to get back here and move the project forward.
We can't see the other plan that you put up, the old one, and I'm not sure which plan you're referring to as the one you like best.
Oh, you don't, can you put this one up, Chris?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah,
It was the one we presented at the last meeting. I'm sure you don't remember that, Mr. Astor, but it's the one that we'll pull up now, showing a road length. I believe it's 986 feet, and 11 total lots. No?
11 total lots.
Yeah.
About 6 acres of dedicated open space and an affordable unit.
Correct.
The transcription read that as 1,111.
never mind.
While Chris pulls it up, I'll just note that seeing the shared driveways on the, you know, the two that were presented, you know, newest ones, they were unconventional layouts of shared driveways for these. But I do, looking at the layout of the wetlands, I think that, at least for me, that makes sense. You know, I think it has probably the least impact to the wetlands in the area to do it the way it was proposed in that. But
Which one, Justin?
I was talking about both the flex and the conventional that they presented for tonight. Though
Nine. Okay.
Chris is pulling up the one that they prefer in a moment.
Yeah, and the one that we prefer, we do, you know, try to pull away from the wetland area.
Yes.
And have the least disturbance, which was consistent with what we originally proposed, which we were trying to loop around the wetland and
Yeah,
keep
this
it more
plan has
natural.
this doesn't propose 1 square foot of alteration to the wetlands. This totally protects the wetlands, whereas the other two plans had 1 brook crossing.
Yep.
And how long did you say? Remind us the length of that driveway.
I believe it's
Just under 1,000 feet.
yeah,
in the
986 feet. I think.
May I finish before you answer? The length of the driveway in the plan that Chris has up now.
500 feet. The common driveway is 500 feet.
No. The plan that Chris has up for us now, which is the old plan, has a road that's like 1,000 feet long.
Correct. That's it. No, that's it. I think.
Yeah, that's
He's
the old
referring-
plan. Yeah,
yeah.
that's the old plan. So just under 1,000 feet, Bob.
Right, and that's the one that you prefer.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes. I'll just tell you, I won't vote for it. I can't go for the 1,000-foot driveway. And how many lots does that one have?
11 total.
Yep.
They're all conventional lots with adequate frontage and acreage, and they have a nice shape to each lot. And there's no alteration of any wetlands, and 1 unit would be affordable.
Yeah. I said it. I can't go with a 1,000-foot driveway or
So
roadway.
So I mean, I think the board has the power to waive the 500 foot. You've done it in the past. We're proffering, protecting giving over 6 acres of open space, keeping the back the way it is for now, and introducing an affordable component to the project. Those were the we thought provided the basis for the board to deviate, which it states in your bylaw. So, I mean, you certainly have the power to do it. But we thought we were proffering considerations based on the configuration of the site and a minimum development. Our prior project size was, I believe, 42 lots. No, yeah, and this is compliant with the your bylaw and rules and regulations, but for the length of the roadway. So we thought as a package deal and what we were giving you, it'll allow you to exercise that discretion and give us the relief we needed for this particular version of the development.
I think when we last looked at this, I think when I was thinking that you might be able to look at a flexible plan that is kind of along these lines, but pulling back the road, not all the way to 500 feet, but to 600 or 700 feet, and with a lot arrangement, not too different from this, except as a flex, the lots can be smaller with less frontage. But with a layout that's not dramatically different than this, but with somewhere between 500 and 1,000 feet. That's sort of what I was expecting. You might be able to find a way to do that. I mean, the new sketches you brought tonight are sticking to the 500 feet, and that kind of shrinks everything back.
Yeah, exactly.
and makes the lot lines look a little bit more awkward. But in any case, you're required to, if you were to submit this plan, you would also be required to submit a flexible plan.
Yes.
I mean, you've got one sketch there as a significantly different flex plan, but I was wondering whether you wouldn't be able to do a flex plan that looks more like this, but with the 1,000 feet scaled back to something more like 6 or 7.
Yeah.
Let me say that the board has granted relief up to 599, 600 feet on a number of occasions. And if that was sufficient to help with this, I agree with Dave.
Yeah, I think the largest waiver I can remember in the years I've been on the board was 715. There was some unusual circumstances there, but
I don't see circumstances here, at least not yet, that would go with that. And one of the reasons, I don't know whether our folks here tonight know, but the planning board is in court over a long driveway, a long dead-end road, and that's not helping.
Yeah, I mean, this particular site, is bordered by larger parcels. It's not very residentially sensitive, and we have a ton of open space. I'm listening very carefully, and naturally, we want to bring something to you that is going to get improved. So, I guess it's back to the drawing board.
Prabhu, I just see your hand up. You can go ahead.
Excuse me?
Yes. So I believe there was one more option or one other suggestion last time around, right? Which was the 22 acres. I had a suggestion because our town affordable units we don't have as much as we need. Likewise, we don't have space for recreation. So I had suggested that if the 22 acres, that is something you could provide to the town for playgrounds, and we talked about it, soccer, cricket, volleyball, whatnot. Did you guys have a chance to think about that, or is that completely out of?
Certainly, it's not out of the question. It wasn't something that I've significantly phased this project down, so I can get a return on, my investment in the project. And then we specifically kept that open. And I think I said it the last time that, I'd maybe possibly be open to something like that in the future. But I'm certainly not gonna entertain that now. So I'd rather bring a project to the board that is gonna be passable. And then, in the future, I would be open to discussions along those lines. I'm not open to that now, though. That's zoned industrial, so there's just so much you can do back there. But, yeah, I'm not gonna, bring that into the mix, if you will. I'm a home builder. I'm just trying to make some lots and build some houses, so.
Yeah, I'll say for at least for myself, a waiver is something that I would, for the road length, something that I would consider with the affordable unit. By hearing from what the board has said, I'm not sure that I'd be in the majority in terms of voting for this with this length, but.
Yeah, but I think, just to sort of repeat, I think it would be interesting to me to see something, a flex plan that's closer to what we're looking at here on the screen, with the road scaled back, not all the way to 500 feet, and sort of in between, with a similar number of lots, maybe with an affordable component for a little, a little bit, a few more feet or something like that. I don't know exactly what the trade-off.
No, I know what I think I understand what you're saying. It's just a question of going back and having Norm,
one more iteration on the design, right?
But listen, I find this to be a better process than, going all the way to the definitive and not being palatable for the board. So
No, I appreciate that.
I'm not the least bit disappointed, although I think that a little bit more discretion on the length, as you've indicated, I think may get me home to where I want to be as well.
Yeah,
So.
I think, looking at the sketches, you've done what's probably the best you can do within the 500-foot limit, and that, as you say, both of those look kind of awkward.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm
But I
thinking
mean, we'll
more than 500 feet, but not all the way to 1,000 feet. You probably find a happy medium there.
I don't disagree. I mean, the trend is, in eastern part of Massachusetts and sort of like the Bridgewater, Carver area, smaller lots, smaller homes. People aren't really looking for larger homes anymore, because cost of materials has driven up the cost of housing. So.
Yeah, I know that is a factor that, I mean, I appreciate you had stated the intent previously that you're not looking to build the biggest homes around. You're looking.
Oh, that was never the intent.
Right. So smaller lot sizes, smaller homes that are relatively more affordable for people. That's a plus. And if we can find a.
Yeah, and I don't really have a problem with that metric. So we'll get back to the drawing board and probably reach out again and show you what we come up with.
By the way, in our process, this road length will, I believe, come up in the special permit, which normally comes up in the preliminary, with the preliminary, although I guess it doesn't absolutely have to. And once you get beyond 600, you need to be showing substantial public benefit factors to help justify the waiver. So, you can craft your proposal.
You good? Yeah. Well, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Right, thank you so much.
Thank you for your efforts, and we'll
I'll be back.
yes, I hope so.
My father taught me persistence moves resistance, so I learned it well. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you.
You too.
All right.
Hey, Justin, can I ask one quick question? Bob, when you said once it gets beyond 600, I think you meant once it gets beyond 500?
No. You maybe didn't hear, but it's gotten to the point where we've allowed between 500 and 600 in a fair number of occasions. So it wouldn't take too much benefit to okay something in the 500 to 600 range. But once we get beyond the 600, that's really, to me, is an exception that needs some real, some sort of real benefit.
Okay, you did say 600. Got it. Thanks.
All right. The time is now 7:30 p.m. We have a public hearing. Mr. Clerk, do you want to read the notice?
The Grafton Planning Board will hold a public hearing on Monday, July 11th, 2022, commencing at 7:30 p.m. in Conference Room A of the Grafton Municipal Center, 30 Providence Road, to consider an application for modification of a special permit and site plan approval for a mixed-use development of Fonsa Village to modify the type, size, and location of certain buildings on property located at 100 Westboro Road and shown as Grafton Assessors Map 12, Lot 22. Said property is located in the medium-density residential R20 and village mixed-use transit village VMU-TV zoning districts. The applicant is Pulte Homes of New England, LLC, and the owner is DNF Afonso Builders, Incorporated. A copy of the application/plan is available for public inspection at the Planning Department during regular business hours or on the Town of Grafton website at www.grafton-ma.gov on the Planning Department/Development Projects webpage.
All right, thank you. All right, so how do I want to start this off? Chris, or do you have anything to say before I turn it over to the applicant?
No, if the applicant wants to begin.
All right.
Fine.
Great, thank you very much. Before we get started, can Natalia, if you have the power, can I ask that you promote Mark Mastriani as a panelist, please?
Yep, 1 second.
Or whoever does have that power.
Chris?
Chris has that power.
Chris, all right, Chris, thank you.
He has all the power.
I don't know about that.
At least 110 volts.
All right, brilliant. Thank you very much. Well, thank you, Chris and members of the board. I'm Essek Petrie with Pulte Homes. Joining me tonight are Mark Mastriani of Pulte Homes, Matt Leidner of Civil Design Group, and our partners in the project who are there in person, Amanda Cavalier of Guerriere and Holland, and Dominic Afonso of DNF Afonso Builders. As noted, we're here to discuss the Afonso Village mixed-use community, and in particular, we're requesting approval of a modification to the special permit and site plan decision that was granted in August of 2020. The project site is located at 100 Westboro Road, adjacent to the intersection with Institute Road. And as noted, it's zoned Village and Neighborhood Mixed Use, Transit Village Neighborhood Center. The approved project included 2 3-story mixed-use buildings, including commercial and residential, 3 3-story residential buildings, and 4 townhomes for a total of 14,000 square feet of retail and 105 dwelling units. If you recall, we presented some preliminary conceptual site plan modifications to the board as a discussion item in late January. And since that time, we've taken your comments into consideration, worked together with the Afonso team to develop a renewed approach that complies with the existing zoning. It keeps with the intent of the original application, and we feel it aligns with the goals of that zoning district. So really the significant difference between this proposal and what was presented in January is the preservation of the residential units on the 2nd and 3rd floor of buildings A and B fronting Westboro Road. Now we're confident that this configuration reflects the purpose of the Transit Village Neighborhood Center District, and it also provides the best opportunity for a healthy and sustainable mixed-use neighborhood. I just wanted to note that we did present this updated program at a development team meeting in May with Chris, Conservation Agent Leah Cameron, and Building Inspector Berger. Comments we received during that discussion were very helpful. It was actually those development team meetings it's a great resource. And so we incorporated those comments as much as we could into the design package that we're going to be reviewing tonight. Additionally, we have reached out to the Grafton Water District and the Sewer Department regarding this proposed modification, and both utilities have confirmed that they have no concerns servicing the project as presented. Now I'll turn it over to my colleague Matt Leidner to go into a more detailed presentation on the project. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Essek. Good evening, board members. Matt Leidner with Civil Design Group. If I may ask Chris or Natalia, who's controlling the screen, to go to the approved site plan first. My thought was just to give a brief overview of what has been approved for this project, and at that point go into what the proposed modifications are. Okay, there we go. Thank you very much. Okay, so just so everybody has their bearings, I know most people are probably familiar with the site, but just in case, so north is up on this plan. Westboro Road runs left to right along the top of the page, and then Institute Road runs north-south there on the right side of the page, top to bottom. So the project site is at essentially front, well, it's not at the hard corner, but it fronts on both roads. So the approved plan that's on the screen now includes 5 3-story buildings. The 2 that are up closest to Westboro Road include commercial space on the first floor, and then residential units on floors 2 and 3. The 3 buildings farther down the page there to the south, closer to Institute Road, all 3 of those buildings are exclusively residential units on all 3 floors. In addition to those 5 buildings, there are 4 townhomes over by Institute Road, right there on the approved plan. And so the approved plan had a total of 105 units. 101 were in the 5 buildings, the 5 larger buildings, and then 4 townhomes. And then there was approximately 14,000, just over 14,000 square feet of commercial space on the first floors combined of the 2 buildings up by Westboro Road. So that's kind of an overview of what was approved and what is approved currently. So then if I may ask that we go to the rendered version of the proposed modified site plan. Okay, great, thank you. So starting, I guess we'll work from Westboro Road down. So the 2 buildings closest to Westboro Road, buildings A and B on this plan, remain the same. So still the 14,000, just over 14,000 square feet of commercial on the first floors combined. And then the residential units, 32 units, 16 each building on floors 2 and 3 of those 2 buildings. So those 2 buildings don't change at all in this proposal. And fundamentally, the parking and circulation around those buildings, I should say the circulation doesn't change. We did shift parking that was more remote from those buildings up closer to those buildings. So we did add some parking around those buildings in this plan. The buildings to the south, what we're proposing is to consolidate what was 3 3-story buildings, each with 23 units, into the 2 50-unit buildings that you see on the plan here. And whereas those, as I mentioned, the previous or the approved buildings were 3 stories, these 2 50-unit buildings are each 4 stories with parking beneath the footprint in the basement level, which is allowed by zoning. And just to note that the zoning actually changed during the process of when the original design was completed to this point here. The zoning did change to allow 4 stories in this district. So we are utilizing that allowance to consolidate units from 3 buildings into 2 buildings, and also putting the parking beneath those 2 buildings. In addition, townhomes are also proposed, 5 in this case. And we've shifted them from, they were previously closer to Institute Road. We've shifted them toward the western end of that back area. The idea here is to create a separate, ultimately, to create a separate parcel such that the rear units, the two 50-unit buildings and the 5 townhomes would be on their own condominium parcel, as they are all proposed to be home ownership units, not rental units. The proposal here is for 137 total units, which is an increase from what was approved, an increase of 32 units. But I will note that that is well within the density, well under the density that is allowable under zoning. There's a total of 364 parking spaces. Due to the additional units, we do have additional or more parking from what was approved. However, I will emphasize that there are fewer surface parking spaces on this plan than what was approved, because we are providing parking beneath those two 50-unit buildings, buildings 1 and 2. So 100 parking spaces end up combined below those two buildings, 50 each, which is obviously a significant amount of parking. And the result of that, despite the 32 additional units from what was approved, because we are going higher with the two rear buildings, as allowed by zoning, to the 4 stories, and we are tucking 100 parking spaces under those two buildings, the impervious footprint of this modified version actually decreases by about 4/10 of an acre, just over 4/10 of an acre. So almost a half an acre reduction in impervious area on this proposed modified plan as compared to the approved plan. Because of that decrease in impervious area, there's less runoff generated from the proposed project. Therefore, the stormwater management basin for this project, which is the darker green area toward the left side behind the townhomes, there's a darker green shaded area there. We don't need to enlarge or change that approved stormwater basin. It can remain as is because there's less water contributing to it in this modified plan. There's also less buffer zone impact. I know that's not under the purview of the planning board. That's a conservation commission matter. But I felt it was important just to note that. And we have submitted for an amended order of conditions with the Conservation Commission with this amended plan. I believe we're on their agenda for a hearing date or meeting date next week on that. So water and sewer to this modified version of the plan fundamentally don't change. Of course, the run of water main and water services have been adjusted to or based on the modified unit layout. But fundamentally, there's no change, other than one benefit to what we're proposing here is that on the approved plan, the water main only connected between Westboro Road and Institute Road. We are proposing a further connection or interconnection to the approved single-family development to the south of the site, just to provide further redundancy in the water distribution system. And so the Grafton Water District has stated that they, based on this amended project, they can provide water to it with the updated unit count. And similarly, the DPW relative to sewer has stated that this project as amended, that the sewer system has adequate capacity for collection and for treatment of the wastewater associated with the project. We have come to understand, although Pulte wasn't involved when the project was approved previously, that the pocket park was an amenity that was important and discussed during the review and approval process. And so we've maintained that element on this plan. So that where the cursor is now circling around there, that is the proposed pocket park. It did shift locations from where it was on the approved plan up in that, yeah, sort of in the area of Building 1 there, behind Building 1. However, we have maintained it and we've actually enlarged it from what was previously approved. And within that pocket park provided in the middle there, that circular, besides the walking and pedestrian pathways, we provided an outdoor amenity space with some a seating area, some grills, some benches, sort of a gathering area in the middle there. So we're kind of happy to report that we were able to actually enhance that area a bit on this plan. As I mentioned, I mentioned pedestrian access and connectivity. So just on a project-wide basis, we've been very careful and we've maintained the pedestrian circulation on this plan and connectivity on this plan fundamentally the same as on the approved plan. Of course, we've made adjustments because driveways and parking areas have shifted a bit, but the overall circulation and connectivity does remain the same on this plan as what was approved. I will also mention here that we've proposed on the bottom of the page there a driveway connection to the end of what was a cul-de-sac, or what has been approved to be a cul-de-sac in the single-family development to the south. So as you're aware, Pulte now it controls and is building that single-family development, and we think it will be a sort of a win-win for that development and this development here before you tonight to have that connection. And I know that's something that back in January when we submitted this or presented this informally to your board, we talked about potentially a gate or no gate to allow through access or not. And the consensus was not to have a gate. And so we think that this connection and circulation to allow that development to circulate up through to the commercial space here in this development without having to go out onto Institute and Westboro. So we really think this is a benefit for both projects, and we feel is what was discussed at that January meeting with your board. So with that said, just kind of to conclude here, we, based on this, you're seeing a rendering here on the screen tonight, but we have submitted to the board a fully updated civil engineering plan set for this modified version of the plan, along with an updated landscaping plan, which is absolutely more robust than what was approved previously by the board. We've submitted a stormwater memorandum to document that the approved stormwater basin is adequately sized to handle the modified or the runoff from the modified project to it. And Pulte's excited to take on this component of this project, the residential component in the rear of the project. And we're hopeful that these adjustments are well received and hopefully seen as an improvement to the plan. We understand that Graves Engineering has been tasked to peer review this. So we look forward to getting their review comments and happy to address any comments that arise during that review. And I mentioned that we've also submitted to the Conservation Commission. So with that said, if there's anything else you'd like me to cover or any further or any questions on the proposal, we'd be happy to address them. Thank you for your time.
Go ahead, Bob.
I have questions. Buildings A and B, I'm not quite sure how to interpret the markings there in the space between them. Looks like parallel parking instead of nose in parking or something like that. Can you explain those?
Sure. Yes. So the approved plan, so that part of the plan has not changed. That is from the approved plan, which is in between those two buildings, there are parallel parking spaces on each side of the driveway that front along those two buildings. So that's actually an element that has not changed from what was approved.
are the entrances, there's business in those first floors there, right?
Correct.
For the businesses that face that middle road, are there handicapped provisions?
Well, there are handicap provisions for those buildings. I guess I would ask the Alfonso team to address that comment, as that's not something that's changed on this plan,
Yeah, okay.
if they can.
Well, all right. I'm interested in the distance from your connection to Institute Road down to Westboro Road.
The connection, the driveway into the proposed mixed use and the distance between that and Institute?
Yeah, where the arrow is now was a moment ago, yes, up to Westboro Road. They're more than 500 feet.
Yes, so I can certainly look at that here as we address more questions. I can get back to you momentarily on that.
It's just, we have to look at distance, and we have rules. Let's see.
But I just to clarify, that isn't. But it's not a. It's. I guess I was here. I observed the last meeting, informal meeting that you had. So that was relative to dead end length. It seemed.
Oh, that's a different issue.
Okay.
This is how far between intersections, and that connection to Institute Road is going to function as an road.
Oh, that distance there. Okay, I follow you now. Thank you.
Okay. Do we have more residential? I think you said we have more residential units now. Is that right?
Yes.
That's correct.
So that ought to have some impact on the traffic study. And I think we ought to update that information if we haven't.
Yep, that's a great point, Mr. Hassinger. There are additional 32 units, and we are coordinating with the consultant that performed the traffic study for the original approved project, and we will be putting together an update to that traffic study to show that change.
If I may address the distance question here, I just looked at. So it's approximately, it's just over 400 feet measured along Institute Road from Westboro Road to the proposed site driveway. And the proposed site driveway is approximately in the same location as what was approved. It's actually slightly farther just a hair farther from Institute Road. So that distance is slightly farther than what was approved.
I guess we need to do a little reviewing about that, how we got that way, whether at that I don't remember whether it looked like we were going to get significant traffic out of it. Anyway, I'm concerned about everything about traffic on Institute Road.
Yeah, I'll say, Bob, I don't recall the distance from that intersection being of particular concern to the board at the initial approval.
Yeah, but I don't know why that would have been. So I'm have to try to go back and figure that out. I didn't pick up whether there was any affordable element in this.
Yes, there will be 20% affordable units for that, in particular, the 105 in the southern portion of that. Because there'll be home ownership, there'll be 20% affordable.
They'll be affordable as in chapter 40B. Qualify for that. Okay.
That is a requirement of the zoning bylaw for this zone.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
people like to know.
Yes.
And just as a comment for the rest of the board, if they don't all remember, is that the previously approved thing was meant to be rental units, so that was at 25%, I believe it was.
Yes.
And then this new proposal with the modification is ownership units, so that'd be 20% with that bylaw ownership.
Yeah,
So that's going to be how many units?
Right. So of the total of 105 units here, 20% or 21 are required to be affordable.
Okay. And tell me, there's been a lot of interest out there about accessibility provisions in some of these new buildings, multi-unit buildings in particular. How much accessibility do they have? Particularly, like, you know, you got, are there elevators in any of them?
Yes.
It's not, I'm sorry.
Sorry, go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, I can speak to the two buildings, 1 and 2, the two 50-unit buildings to the rear of the parcel. Those are the 4-story residential buildings, and those each have entrances that are designed to be flush, fully accessible, with the accessible parking spaces being the most convenient, shortest route to those main entrances. It's sort of the two horseshoes that you can see on opposite ends of those buildings. Those are the accessible entrances, main entrances. And then within the buildings, inside those entrances are elevators that serve all the floors of those buildings.
Does the elevator get to the, those have parking below ground, don't they?
Yes.
Yes. And the elevators do serve the basement, the below ground parking as well. So all, you know, the basement parking in all 4 residential stories are served by the elevators in those units.
Okay, good. Good. I think that's all for right now that I have.
Thank you.
Okay, a couple of comments here. One is I like the reduced building footprint here. I like the improved, the pocket park with more amenities. Overall, I like the larger number of units, even though the the buildings 1 and 2 there are now going to be ownership rather than rental units. We still see a net increase in the number of affordable units over the old plan. Not much of an increase, but it is a slight increase. What the town loses with the switch from rental to ownership is the ability to count all 100 units in those 2 buildings toward the SHI. There's still a net improvement in the number of affordable, but it doesn't give us quite as much of a total addition to our SHI, which is less important to me than the number of affordable units. I would expect that somewhere in this process that we can put on record, I would expect the applicant to document the updated affordability numbers in terms of the unit counts and the unit mix. With buildings 1 and 2 being a mix of 1 and 2 bedroom units, the proportion of affordable should be consistent with the total proportion of 1 and 2 bedroom units. So details like that should be documented. The whole procedure for getting this eventually counted towards SHI is essentially as a local action unit under the LIP process. But that all, that sort of, that's a requirement, kind of an implicit requirement of the VMU zoning, which is going to have to be followed through. All the paperwork that's needed to actually get the units counted towards the SHI. So a lot of that is details to be worked out, but I think it's important that everybody that it be on record as to, what the affordability numbers are going to be, how they're going to be distributed amongst the various units. That's
a great point. And we are familiar with that process, and we'll definitely work with Chris as we put together those ratios and identify those specific units as part of the package that's required for that application, and make sure that that's it's filtered through the board and the department.
Let's see.
Chairman?
Yes.
Hi, question. You just remind me, not the ones that have been changed, but the 2 buildings that are remaining essentially the same, where it's units above stores, above retail. That's still rental, right?
Yeah, those were originally proposed as rental, and this application is not changing that.
Correct. And are any of those affordable rental?
They will have to be, yes.
Well, so there is still an effect.
So if I may jump in, this is Mark Mastriani from Pulte as well. I think if Dominic and Amanda are in the audience, I wouldn't want to speak for those units that.
Okay, that's okay. I can look back and see what it was.
Well,
Whether they're home ownership or rentals, and then if they are rentals, I believe the zoning requires 25%, not 20. So home ownership is 20% and rentals is 25%. So either we would intend to comply with the zoning.
how about accessibility in those buildings?
I don't think he'd know.
Well, I think the Pulte answer, would be that the designs that have been submitted to the planning board have not changed. They're approved architecture in your files. We have it. We can. It's not that it's a secret, but it still remains what it was. And if Amanda and Dominic know those answers, I would, I would defer to them.
Thing is, I think we may have people watching or following who are more interested than they used to be about that, about affordability, accessibility, and so on.
Absolutely.
Yep, we do have Dominic and Amanda here right now. They just walked right up.
The two buildings, whatever the way we are approved, we don't changing anything. The way we are.
Can you speak a little more into the mic?
I say the two buildings, the two first buildings, the way we approve, we keep them the same way. We don't change nothing on them. Everything what I was approved, I think was 20%. I don't know exactly what it was. We could look back, but what I was approved, it's the way you intend to do it.
Yeah, so if in those two buildings, the residential units are to be rental units,
yes,
then 25% of them must be affordable. And that's
whatever we are approved.
right.
Yes.
I mean, that's
whatever we are approved. We don't gonna change. We do not have to change anything. The way we are approved, it's the way we like to build it. Yeah. And like even we talk when we got it approved, say in case, we don't rent the stores, we don't rent them in commercial, we say probably you think for apartments or whatever you do, if you don't rent them. First you have to try to rent them, but I guess that's the way you left it when we did it.
Yeah, to the best of my recollection, the original approval, all of the residential units were rental except for the townhouses, which were to be ownership units.
Yes.
And and my question, accessibility for all of the dwelling units are second and third floor here. Elevator access?
Yes, I believe we have elevator going in, yes. Right in the center.
Okay.
Right now with the plans here, but the way it was, like I said, the way it was approved, that's the way we still go do the same thing.
Right, we're not changing anything in those two buildings.
Exactly,
from what
we're
we
not
approved.
changing anything, no, we don't.
Yeah, but there are people out there who are going to be asking now because they don't remember anything, even as much as we do. So I ask so that they have a chance to know and comment if they want to. Okay.
Anything more from the board?
Not right now.
Just a couple of other observations from the plan. It's not, these are sort of minor points, but I noticed that there was a cedar board fence separating this development from the subdivision to the south. You don't really, I don't know, you don't see it so well.
That's still there.
They did, there is on the other drawing, there's a nice little cedar board fence to separate them. I think in addition, there's a little bit more separation between the subdivision and the buildings here as now proposed, so that's probably a plus. Around the detention basin, what's shown on the plan is a cedar post and rail fence with a black chain link. It'll look, to my way of thinking anyway, that looks a lot nicer than a plain old chain link fence.
And
Yep, we feel the same way, and that it's something that we've used on other projects, and I think it looks good.
And there's even an EV charging station for two electric vehicles.
Only two? Actually, that's going to be a problem as time goes on.
Well-
People are going to, you know, we could come, if we had an electric car, we could come home and plug it in, but more and more we're going to have this sort of thing where people don't have a place to plug in.
Yeah, it's kind of off the subject, but I was reading an article along those lines just the other day that said, what about charging your electric vehicles if you don't have a garage to park the car in?
Yeah, that's coming up. We have some of the buildings we start put them in because people they wanted to plug in.
Yeah, so there's going to be more of a demand for charging stations in parking lots like this.
That I do believe so. Yes.
If nothing else, the town at least does have charging stations at our library as well.
Yeah,
And-
but that
and
doesn't help
if there's a demand,
drive home
yeah.
and then walk from the library to the, no.
No, I don't disagree. I'm saying if there's a demand for it here, they'll,
Yeah.
it'd be something that we should,
I
endorse as a board.
yeah,
This-
yeah,
If I may,
yeah.
if I may just jump in there, the system proposed here, so it's a dual post charging station, so 2 parking spaces can take advantage of it. That's what's proposed to initially, but the system is expandable. So should the demand be there in the future, this system can be expanded for additional spaces.
Where is it?
It's out in front of Building 1, sort of bottom left.
The bottom left corner of that parking lot.
Yep.
Right there. Yep.
Yeah, and it's not beyond the realm of possibility that there may come a time when EV charging stations may show up in the garages underneath those buildings.
We're going to be seeing a lot of action on that over the next
Yep.
decade.
A bit of a chicken and egg problem with electric vehicles, but I think the momentum is building.
Yes.
Okay.
All right, and I'll just briefly add to what Mr. Robbins said. I think I agree with much of his benefit points that he mentioned, but like one additional benefit I do see is just the connection to that other development that's just to the south of this. I think that is a strong benefit for multiple reasons. The residents can avoid Institute Road if it makes sense for them for their travels, especially if they're wanting to stop at the commercial buildings in front before they go on their way. And it does also provide for if a tree or something else falls on Institute Road, which has happened in the last year or two in 2 different spots on it, that would have essentially cut off the travel on Institute for this for both of these developments. That having that extra avenue to leave the property would be just overall beneficial for safety reasons. So I like that, adding it to the cul-de-sac there.
That again raises questions that I had about that middle aisle. I don't remember dimensions of it, but does that could get to be a fairly busy street, basically, like a city street with parallel parking on both sides. I want to be sure that we're confident about the dimensions, that it's quite adequate to function that way.
I just had one other thought, and I'm not sure what this really goes, but if building 1 and 2 now, and the townhouses always were, but if they're now under individual ownership, who maintains the park area and all that? There'll be owners.
That would be the condo association.
Would be.
Correct.
Okay. That's my only question.
All right.
I just have one. The revisions to the traffic study were discussed. So
Yes.
I I think I know the answer to the question, but if that should be peer reviewed or not as well. We can also wait to see what if the revisions are substantial enough in the board's opinion to require it, but.
I think that's what we should do.
Yeah, I'll say, at least for me, if we had the original traffic study peer reviewed, which I believe we did, then it makes sense to have the revisions peer reviewed as well. That's my feeling. Ideally by the same person. I do see your hand, Prabhu.
Hey, Justin. Yes. So, can the planning board give recommendations, guidelines in terms of the homeowners association or the condo association? And where I'm going with that is, I came from a place in Amherst where we had residential and commercial units, and it was a disaster having a condo association where the commercial units, by virtue of lower square footage, paid very less but consumed a lot of a larger portion of what they contributed, and it was always fraying nerves out there in meetings. So, is it the planning board, or can the planning board regulate, recommend, provide guidelines, or is it someone else who would need to say, to ask these folks to separate out the condo association, one for the residential units, another for the commercial units?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's my impression that the condos are strictly the residential portion of this that they're updating. That the two mixed use buildings are not part of that. And there's no. I have no reason to think that those are going to be tied into the condo association that's part of these residential units.
And
That's absolutely correct. Just to clarify, the 105 units that Pulte is proposing would be a separate home ownership condominium created under Chapter 183A. And then Dominic and the Alfonso team would own and manage their mixed-use development in a different manner. What we want to be very clear about is that there's a plan, and the modified approval clearly delineates the responsibilities of who's building, the infrastructure, and who maintains the common elements. And I think that's important for the planning board, and it would be important for both Dominic and his team and myself and our team to make sure it's all clearly paperwork, so that there's no misunderstandings and everybody's all on the same page. And I think we need to provide that, or we would like to provide that.
Yeah, I seem to recall hearing you near the beginning of the presentation mentioning that your intent is to separate this residential portion of the lot from the rest of it for the purpose of establishing the condominium ownership of that parcel and that parcel only.
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comment from the board or staff?
I might get reminded here. One of our members back early on in some of this, no longer with us, was quite concerned about the connection, the walking connections between this whole thing, the subdivision and I guess this, over to the school. It's a little ways over to the left off these drawings. And I'm just wondering where that stands. I think it was on the subdivision side.
It is, yeah. There's I believe it's parcel C. That is, it's not shown on this plan because it is part of the single family subdivision, but that was carried through from those approved plans and will be part of the construction of that single family subdivision. And we have that included and anticipate building that as part of the single family.
Right. The thing is that now we have even more people. There's going to be a fair amount of kids going to school, so want to know what we're doing. We want to be sure that we're doing the best we can. We're building, like I say, a city street all the way from the subdivision right out to Westboro Road there, and there's going to be a fair amount of traffic So
I apologize. I guess I'm not clear on what the concern is. Is it that there's, because there will be sidewalk and pedestrian access, from each of those buildings through to the single family directly to that, that walkway. Is the concern that there would not be enough of an accommodation?
Just asking, to be, okay, we're adding to this, we're adding more people and a somewhat different traffic pattern. So, take a look. But how does this fit? Does it fit? And trying to respect these two projects are in the running for the longest running projects in my memory, which is fairly long.
Oh,
And just for,
Understood. We'll keep that into consideration for sure.
Yep.
and just to reiterate just a little bit, the thought process that had previously come up is that both the development just to the south of this one and the residents in this development may have children going to the elementary school, which is 300 feet down the road to the west of the lot roughly, and those students may, along with their parents, choose to be walking to that to that school area. So just how these two developments actually tie into that for pedestrian access. That was the overall thought that came into this initially.
Yeah. Well, the walking though was through basically straight towards the school from more or less the cul-de-sac, I think, along with the southern edge there. But through the woods, through the wetlands, through the whatever, that's a shorter walk, and it doesn't keeps you off of Westboro Road. So okay.
For what it's worth, this development, the 250 unit buildings are largely 1-bedroom units. By my count, we have 68 1-bedroom units and 32 2-bedroom units, adding up those two buildings together. There will be relatively few children, school-aged children in those units, just by the nature of the size of the units. Not that there won't be, there very well could be some, but the mix of units is going to lean towards relatively few children in this portion of the development.
if I may just jump in there just for accuracy. So each of the 50 unit buildings has 27 2-bedrooms and 23 1-bedrooms. So it's very similar to what you mentioned, but it's just a little bit different. It's a little bit more equal. So there's 54 2-bedrooms and 46 1-bedrooms.
Okay,
but the general point I would agree with completely based on our experience is that this type of living is not conducive to school-age children. And yes, you may get some and maybe sometimes even preschool, like before school, and then they get older and then they move away to a different type of living. But this general type of condominium living, and especially this multifamily, 4-story type of building type of living, is not conducive for school-age kids. You will get some, but it will not, in our experience, it's not a lot.
So I must have miscounted when I was looking at the units on those architectural drawings. But whatever, and that's worthwhile. Again, just documenting that, along with what I mentioned earlier, documenting the affordability, but also documenting the number of units of each size.
Yeah, as Essek mentioned, we have a lot of experience working with DHCD and getting the units approved for the SHI. One of their main requirements, exactly what you mentioned, was the proportionate number of bedrooms. So there will be an equal proportionate number of 1-bedroom affordables and market rate, and then same with 2-bedrooms affordables and market rates. So all of that will be shared with the town and coordinated with you, and the package needs to be approved and then goes to DHCD for approval. So
Yeah, I know they also have requirements for the floor area of the various size of units. I don't think we need to worry about this. I know you're well aware of those, and I don't see an issue there. But they got all sorts of requirements there that a lot of I's to dot and T's to cross.
All right. Since I don't see anything further from the board or staff, if any member of the public wishes to speak on this, as it is a public hearing, you can raise your hand on the Zoom raise hand feature, and we'll bring you into the meeting. Give a few moments for that. I'm not seeing anyone.
I don't see anybody in the room raising their hand
No.
either.
There's nobody in the room to raise their hand with. So,
I'd explain it.
so I think our next steps, we're waiting on essentially the traffic study update and the peer review, and see if there's any changes from the conservation review as well. And I think the next step would be for the applicant to request a continuance.
And the question there would be, how much time do we need?
Yes. Do you have any insight on on our end, if we need any, how much time we might need for this, Chris?
For the traffic peer review, it depends upon when the revisions are received. Obviously I haven't reached out to get a timeline, but
Yeah.
the revision of this size could be a fairly quick turnaround. So
That's what I was thinking as well, Chris.
Yeah, so.
Okay. If you're gonna have peer review of a study that you don't have yet, that's not all gonna come around in time for our next meeting.
And if I may, we were working with Pulte Homes, and we've reached out to the previous traffic study company that had submitted it before to update. So we're just waiting on a call back from them to get on the schedule. So they have the historical information with the new updates, and should be more of a memo.
Wonderful. I will say our next scheduled meeting is July 25th. Following that would be August 8th. And of course, if you do choose an earlier meeting and you realize that you don't have all the ducks in the row that you guys need, we can always send a message through staff at the planning department, and we can always just request a continuance of the board. We'll just, as a formality, vote on at our meeting, and we can see you guys at the next one after that.
And I appreciate that, Chair. And to Amanda's point, I do think that the change and Chris's point, that this should not be a monumental lift, as it's a pretty insignificant number. So if we could be slated in for the next meeting, and I'll work with Chris as we work with our traffic engineer on getting that memo and then getting peer reviewed as well, and just to keep everybody updated.
So I think I heard a request from the applicant to continue this to July 25th. I will therefore move that the board grant the applicant's to be received written request to continue this hearing to Monday, July 25th, 2022 at 7:30 p.m.
Second.
I have a motion and I have a second. For the roll call vote, Mr. Robbins?
Aye.
Mr. Hassinger?
Aye.
Ms. Hassinger?
Aye.
Mr. Venkatraman?
Aye.
And I vote aye. I declare the motion carried unanimously. We'll see you guys on the 25th.
Thank you, everybody.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Look forward to seeing this project.
Me too.
We all are very excited about this
15
project. So
years.
thank you very much.
Not as much as we are.
1 minute pause, okay?
Okay.
Thank you all.
Yes, this project altogether, considering the single-family development, and this has a rather long history.
Yes. Well, we start with the road. The Institute Road was
Yes.
the road. Then like
How long did it take us to get Institute Road resolved?
yeah,
Quite a few years.
took probably about 10 years.
Oh, the state.
Yeah, that was
Yep.
through DOT and.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
While we're waiting for Bob, I don't know if anyone
Bob.
noticed the transcripts. It's fairly interesting. So the passengers are passengers That's how the name comes up in the transcript.
Oh, it's been all kinds of things. It's had Z's, which is interesting because that's how the Ukraine spells Russia. So it's Russia. So we're Hazers. It's been all kinds of things. It's okay. My maiden name was always mispronounced, misspelled, and that was with my grandfather simplifying it from what it came over as.
My name's misspelled right now.
Oh yeah, I didn't catch that.
It's supposed to be Mac.
Oh dear. Well, Mac would be more common than ICK.
And yet I have ICK all the time.
Well, my maiden name is Chermak. You can just imagine how that got slaughtered.
Yeah.
I'll squeeze in again. Can you make it? You got it?
Yes, very.
Okay.
Okay, I'm back.
All right. So our next item on the agenda is another discussion item for master plan. Do we have anything more to discuss on that this week?
I do not, no.
Nope, I think from the last meeting, we met with CMRPC and they went over with a sort of a timeline and an outline of the plan with prior plans that they thought would be worth looking at, maps that they were proposing to draw, other data that they're suggesting to be collected. And they did ask us for some feedback on that. And I know I had submitted some feedback through to Natalia to be forwarded to them. But I don't know if anybody else had submitted anything for CMRPC's consideration, but presumably they'll take that and continue working on it.
And I do see we had some stuff updated to the documents that we talked about last time as well. So, all right. Our next item on the agenda is for the parking and sign regulations, and I do note for the record we have Mr. Berger, our zoning enforcement officer and building inspector, on the call as well, who wanted to take part in this discussion with us.
Good evening, board. Thank you for inviting me in.
Thank you. Who wants to kick this off?
Bob, do you want to kick that off?
Sure, I do. Chris, can I steal the screen?
Yep. There you go.
Thank you. Just got to figure out what screen I'm on. 2. Okay. So, board members, Chris and I have been talking about parking for a couple of years now. And it seems that I come to Chris when I have a problem. So I'm coming to you because Chris and I have found that in the village mixed use, there seems to be a little bit of an issue that I wanted to bring to your attention. What you're looking at right now is section 4.2.2 off-street parking. And before I get into village mixed use group, I have been talking to Chris and Bob about what are we doing about the common, and I think we should exclude them from this parking regulation. And I think the easiest way to do that is to just go right into 4.2.2 and exclude the Grafton area. And I don't know how we're going to describe it, but we can exclude them right from here. So then that means this regulation, this entire table doesn't affect them at all. And
You're talking about
parking there.
You're talking about the Grafton Common Historical District.
That's right. That's right. That's right. And if we just if we can describe it and exclude it, then it's done. I mean, make it real simple. But getting away from that, the reason why I wanted to talk to you tonight is under multifamily dwellings, you need 2.25 spaces for each dwelling unit. And what that is doing is it's forcing these developers to put in visitor parking. Now, I'm going to slide my other screen over. And this is village mixed use. And here's my problem. My problem is you have a studio with a 1-bedroom. You only need 1 space. You have a 2-bedroom. You need 1.5 spaces. In a 3 or more, you need 2 spaces. What this is doing is not providing any visitor space. And it's not even adequate for the units that you have right now. I mean, if we look at 274 Providence Road, 274 Providence Road is that 8-unit building. There's absolutely no visitors parking. And my fear is everybody's going to be parking in the fire lane, because if they have guests, there's no parking. You have a 2-bedroom and they only need 1.5 spaces. So that's really why I wanted to come up and talk to this board tonight. I have other issues, but I'm not going to bring those up. I just wanted to bring this one up. And with that, I'll try to find my screen and unshare. And that's what I want to talk to you guys about.
Do you have a suggestion on what we should do?
Well, in the village mixed use group, I think that we should be able to give the planning board authorization to go by this 12.7.6 if the developer can prove to the board that there's adequate off-street parking, because this is really designed for a city where you don't need all your parking to be on that premises. So my problem with 274 Providence Road is they're in the corner and they're both on state roads. So there's no way anybody can park on Providence Road or Main Street. So, and if they can't prove that they can adequately and legally park off street, then you have to force them back into 422 and make them do the visitors parking by, your 2.25 on multifamily. Chris and I have had many conversations about this, and I think that is the way to go, that you word it so you may be able to use that table, provided the planning board gives you a special permit for it.
I agree.
How about somebody drafts up, like maybe Chris and maybe you helping him, a proposed amendment, a warrant article?
Well, I can work with Chris. I think that'd be great. Chris, would you want to take that project on after you're done with your leave?
The leave is done. I'm back, but yeah, we can definitely look at that for fall town meeting.
Let's do it sooner rather than later.
Yeah, this sounds straightforward enough to me, and it doesn't sound like the board has any objections.
No, I think it's actually a very good point.
Yeah.
I think it's something that should have been done a long time ago, but I don't think we ever really thought about it in exactly those terms.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say that, these two items, at least at this point, sound like they could be prepared in time for fall town meeting.
Yeah.
Two items?
Well, the parking at the common.
Yeah.
All right. As to the common, I would suggest that we try to have an exchange with the historic district. What are the commission?
Yeah.
As soon as we could. I could see us, charging off in one direction and them really not agreeing. And I can see it trying to look at the map of the district. I think that I have some questions where there might be some concerns about what that might do in the future. So we ought to have a conversation about it. And so I'd encourage us to somehow.
I would agree with that.
Get to them.
Yeah.
And I would note that fall town meeting is not very far away. here it is, almost the middle of July. In order
We're close to when we have to move.
we have several other zoning articles that we've planned to bring up at the fall town meeting, which means it's not too early to start planning out our schedule for the required public hearings and submission of the warrant articles, the whole 9 yards of procedure. There was some stuff we wanted to get done for the Maytown meeting, and we just didn't have time to work through all of it. So the middle of July is not too early to start mapping out that schedule and nailing down what we want to do at fall town meeting and get on the stick.
Yeah.
And if these two items in particular, if it turns out that it takes a little bit more time to make sure that we've got it right, it's possible we won't be able to get this ready for fall town meeting. But we won't have it ready if we don't start working on it.
Yeah,
Right.
I'll say, just to add that, I think 2 separate articles probably make sense. That way they're,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And then
Two separate things.
it'd be good to try to get the Historic District Commission even into one of our meetings if possible in one of our next few meetings. I don't know what their schedule is, but if not, we could always, ask one or more of the members of this board to attend one of their meetings to present it. But
Well, let's one step for.
Yes.
You start every journey with a step. Let's take a step sooner rather than later. It's getting close to the deadlines for a reasonably well brought forward zoning actions. One of the things that makes those hard to get passed is for them to spring up kind of late and not have chances for discussion out there. So make it so.
I would just as well add that it'd be wonderful if we had draft language for the Grafton Common Historic District part when we bring them in, so that we have something tangible to talk about, rather than just a very hand wavy. This is what we're thinking. But even if we don't have that, it's still useful to have that conversation.
No, but well, okay. I think it's sort of tell them we're thinking about dropping off-street parking requirements for maybe it's for the properties that are in their purview. And you tell them that and ask them, what do they think about it? Give us some advice about this as to your view. Okay? And so get them to talk to us sooner rather than later. Maybe they can join us via Zoom if the state allows us to continue doing it. Well, I don't think the state says we couldn't have them via Zoom even if we were in the room. But anyway, offline stuff.
And do you think maybe, Chris, we can have something for next meeting? Some language?
Yeah, I think that may be feasible.
Okay, at least maybe just the village mixed use parking. I think that one's a easier reach.
Yep.
Yeah.
This is great. This was great progress. That's all I have unless anybody has any questions for me. Then on that note,
I got questions for you, but that's Monday night, Bob.
There you go. on that note, everybody have a great night and thank you for having me.
You too, Bob. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
All right. If that's it on this, I did see we have some bills.
We approve the bills.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the bills. Calling for the roll call vote. Mr. Robbins.
Aye.
Mr. Hassinger.
Aye.
Miss Hassinger.
Aye.
Mr. Venkatraman.
Aye.
And I vote aye. I declare the motion carried unanimously. Our next is minutes of the previous meeting.
I
Did get
move
these
that
pretty
we
late.
approve the minutes as drafted
Second.
with any modifications that come up in our discussion.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, calling for the roll. Mr. Robbins,
Aye.
Mr. Hassinger,
Aye.
Ms. Hassinger,
Yes. Aye.
Mr. Venkatraman,
Aye.
and I vote aye. I declare the motion carried unanimously. Next up, staff report.
Yep. So today's my first day back from leave. I just want to send a thank you to staff and members of the board that obviously chipped in during that to make the process smooth. Very much appreciated. Today was spent mainly going through emails and trying to get back up to speed. So catching up on those. I'll continue that work through the week. Hopefully we get back up to speed and moving right along as we continue forward. So thank you.
Staff related. Just curious, the hazard mitigation plan, where is that? It's still a draft?
So it has been finalized. We did receive some late comments from another community that we're going to incorporate, and then I should be hopefully this week submitting to MEMA for their final review and approval. After that, it comes back to us as if there's any comments or edits to be made and further finalization of the finalized plan. But we are 99%
never really
there.
get done.
99% there. So.
All right.
Okay, and the other note I had just to keep track of is the MBTA zoning. I have no reason to think that we're doing anything on that yet because the state has not yet finalized their guidelines.
Correct. Yeah.
And we have till December of 24 to complete our action on it.
Yeah, so I mean, we kind of internally have looked at a number of potential options for addressing it. I think we're fairly well positioned as a community in terms of complying with that zoning mandate. Again, without the details, it's hard to nail down anything. We're getting to midsummer when that information is supposed to be provided. So once it comes in, we'll be cracking that.
I think they promised to update the guidelines sometime by the end of summer, but I'm not holding my breath.
So,
No, I watched some of the video stuff that's been available, training or explanation, and I don't know. We're flexible, we can help, and blah blah blah. That I think it's going to be quite a while seeing that all play out fully. But we have, we'll see. They said that just because the law only says if you don't do it, you lose out on some grant options. But then at the end of the one I was watching, they said, but that's not all. If that's not enough, we have other ways to make you do this. So I think there's a lot to be told there. Mm-hmm. And the town will love whatever it is. But I'm glad to hear that Chris and everybody is seeing positive prospects. I'd like to see some positive prospects. Maybe you can tell me. Okay.
All right. Correspondence. Anyone see anything worth mentioning?
Nothing caught my eye.
All right. Reports from planning board representatives on town committees and CMRPC.
I have nothing.
All right. Any other items which may lawfully come before the board?
I move we adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn. That's non-debatable. Mr. Robbins.
Aye.
Mr. Hassinger.
Aye.
Ms. Hassinger.
Aye.
Mr. Venkatraman.
Aye.
And I vote aye. We are adjourned. Thank you